Here's some weird nerd facts that might change the way you look at these franchises. Superman was once hypnotized to be in a porn, and I feel so bad for the other person. Deadpool is afraid of cows of all things. The show Phineas and Ferb is based off of a diary somebody found belonging to a schizophrenic girl who constantly had visions of her little brothers building weird and impossible contraptions and tried to show people, but they couldn't see it because they don't exist. That one is just sad. The mushrooms they eat in Super Mario Bros. Is based off of an actual mushroom that gives people hallucinations of them growing. And in case you didn't know this one already, eventually Mary Jane Watson develops cancer because of Spider-Man's radioactive sperm. Weird Nerd Facts, Part 2. There's a chemical in your brain named after Sonic the Hedgehog. There's a legend in BBC that when Tom Baker was playing the Fourth Doctor, he wanted one of his companions to be a sentient talking alien cabbage. No one knows the exact day the original Super Mario Bros. Released in America. Hugh Jackman once went to a Comic-Con dressed as his version of Wolverine, and no one recognized him. And someone even told him that he was too short to cosplay Wolverine. There were plans for a crossover between DC Comics and Transformers in which Optimus Prime would become a Green Lantern, but unfortunately no one picked up the story. And on the topic of Green Lanterns, there are two Green Lanterns that are very interesting, because one is Vulcan from Star Trek, and the other is a sentient math equation. And finally, Deadpool's favorite TV show is iCarly. Weird Nerd Facts Part 3. Tetris was the first ever video game to be played in space. After a crossover between Marvel and DC, Hawkeye is the only superhero to be both a member of the Avengers and the Justice League. Not too bad for just a dude that's into archery, huh? It took 3 years to write the script for the first Matrix movie. After the first appearance of the 11th Doctor in Doctor Who, bow tie sales went up by 95%. There was once a law that made it illegal to sell comic books at newsstands unless the hero won. In almost every incarnation of Batman, to open the Batcave, you set the grandfather clock in the den to 10:47 because that's the time his parents were shot. Tony Stark's net worth is a little less than Jeff Bezos at $100 billion, but Black Panther's is 5 times that, making him the richest superhero of all time. And finally, the original creator of Wonder Woman and her Lasso of Truth also helped invent the first ever lie detector. Weird Nerd Facts, Part 4. Even though Jurassic Park is over 2 hours long, dinosaurs are only on screen for a total of 15 minutes. The scene in The Hobbit when Gandalf hits his head on the doorway was not scripted. That was Ian McKellen actually hitting his head. The Joker once served as an Iranian ambassador at the United Nations. Our universe actually exists in the Marvel Universe. We live on Earth 1218. The weird symbols used to censor words in comic books are called jarns, quimps, niddles, and grolixies. One of the biggest works of English literature is a Super Smash Bros. Fanfiction. Wolverine once fought Spock. And lost. There was a pink kryptonite that turned Superman gay. In the first half of The Matrix, Neo asks exactly one question every minute. And finally, in the manual for Super Mario Bros. On NES, there's a short story saying that the Koopas turn all of the other people into the blocks and stones that Mario destroys. There are a lot more of you guys now, so here's Weird Nerd Facts Part 5. Each different kind of bending in Avatar The Last Airbender is based off of a different kind of Kung Fu, with airbending being based off of Bagua Kung Fu, waterbending being based off of Tai Chi, earthbending being based off of Hung Gar Kung Fu, and firebending being based off of Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. In almost every event in the Assassin's Creed series in which a historical figure dies is based around the time that person actually died in history. Wayne Enterprises actually owns the Daily Planet, making Batman Superman's boss. Andy Serkis needed to drink what he called Gollum juice, which was a mixture of honey, lemon, and ginger, to help him do Gollum's voice. There are 1,000 words in the Na'vi language and 3,000 in Klingon. The first instance of Smaug's roar in The Hobbit is actually a heavily altered recording of the effects director's daughter. Before rocket boosters, Iron Man actually used roller skates as a mode of transportation. And finally, Batman owns a total of 8 Batcaves all throughout Gotham. Thank you guys so much for almost 100 followers. I did not expect this to blow up at all. Happy New Year, you frickin' nerds. Here's Weird Nerd Facts Part 6. The train station that leads to Platform 9 3/4 is the same train station J.K. Rowling's parents first met. It is confirmed that Batman has weights at the bottom of his cape to keep it from blowing up into his face. In pretty much every universe, maybe even the MCU, Tony Stark is bisexual. Okay, this is my favorite one so far. Daredevil once said that Deadpool smells like sriracha, gunpowder, and sadness. The slimy sound the snakes make in Indiana Jones is made by a guy shoving his hand into a bowl of mac and cheese. Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Watch Dogs all take place in the same universe. The model for a creeper in Minecraft was actually made completely on accident. when the model for a pig glitched and the torso rotated. And then after that, they decided to make it green, have it explode, and have it be the most annoying little shit in the entire world. The first mod for Dark Souls came out not even half an hour after the game was released. And finally, when filming the first X-Men movie, Hugh Jackman did not know Wolverine was a real animal. Weird nerd facts.
Duo edition. In Earth 3490, Tony Stark is born as a woman by the name of Natasha Stark, therefore Iron Woman, marries Captain America, and because of that, Civil War never happened.
In Pac-Man, each ghost has a specific job, with Blinky constantly chasing you, Pinky constantly trying to be in front of you, Inky staying at the same position throughout the entire game, and Clyde moving completely at random.
The reason why Venom is so crazy and blood-hungry is because the first person he fused with on Earth was actually Deadpool.
One of the biggest Transformers ever is actually Planet Cybertron itself.
In the Marvel Comics, according to Captain Marvel, Tommy Wiseau is both an alien and a wanted criminal that has been hunted for years, hiding out on Earth to escape captivity.
Another surprising character in the Marvel Universe is actually Clark Kent himself, but in the Marvel Universe, he's just an ordinary reporter.
Crowley's beloved Bentley in Good Omens is named Mary.
And finally, the substance that gave Daredevil his powers also created the Ninja Turtles. Weird Nerd Facts, Part 8. The word nerd originates from a Dr. Seuss book that came out in 1951 called If I Ran the Zoo. Bruce Wayne has an IQ of 195. Jarvis's name stands for just a rather very intelligent system. The Fourth Doctor's scarf originally was not supposed to be as long as it was. They hired someone to knit the scarf, but they didn't tell her when to stop, so she just blew through all the yarn they gave her. The reason Altair from Assassin's Creed is missing his ring finger is because when the Hidden Blade came out, the animation made it go through his finger, and they did not know how to fix it, so they just got rid of his finger. The Green Arrow has his own recipe for chili that is so spicy that only him and Batman can eat it. And finally, the Punisher once teamed up with Eminem to take out a hitman that was sent to kill the rapper. Weird Nerd Facts, Part 9. In a couple of scenes in Alien, the Xenomorph was originally supposed to be played by a dog, but on film it came out being just too damn cute for them to use. The hug that Voldemort gives Draco Malfoy was completely improvised. Natalie Portman missed the premiere of The Phantom Menace to study for her high school finals. The announcer for Super Smash Bros. Brawl is also the announcer for Bill Nye the Science Guy. The famously bad E.T. video game on Atari sold 500,000 more copies than Space Invaders. DC Comics once claimed that the reason no one recognizes Clark Kent as Superman is because the glasses he wears have Kryptonian glass that amplify a passive hypnosis, making him able to control how people see him. And also that he has the ability to compress his spine, making him appear shorter. Matt Smith auditioned to play Dr. Watson in Sherlock a week before he auditioned to play the Doctor. And finally, SpiderMan once fought Powdered Toast Man from Ren and Stimpy. Yeah, I didn't believe it at first either, but it's real.
Weird Nerd Facts, Good Omens edition. While in the books, Crowley is described to have dark hair, in the show they gave him vibrant red hair to fit his personality better. And while we're on the subject of Book Crowley, he slept through the entire 19th century. During the 1960s holy water scene, after Aziraphale gives Crowley the holy water and leaves the car, Michael Sheen, the actor who plays Aziraphale, didn't actually leave the vehicle because the car door in his side was broken, so they had to edit it to make it look like he left. Michael Sheen also has said multiple times on Twitter that he loves reading Good Omens fanfiction, specifically very long romantic ones between Aziraphale and Crowley. He's basically the #1 ineffable husband's shipper. In the books, God is actually male. They use he pronouns, but in the show, because it's played by a woman, they change the pronouns to she, so therefore in the show, God is female. And finally, after its initial airing, many angry Christians attacked Netflix, demanding that they take Good Omens off the air. Except that the show was on Amazon Prime, not Netflix.
Weird Nerd Facts, Part 11. The Hulk was originally gray in the comics, but they changed it to green because the gray was messing with the printers that they used to print the comics. Master Chief's voice actor in real life is a DJ. The words TARDIS and Dalek can be found in the dictionary. The founder of the video game company Atari is also the founder of Chuck E. Cheese. You'd think that the DC character Brainiac got his name from the term Brainiac, but no, the term Brainiac came from his name. The kind of music that plays in the cantina scene in Star Wars is called jizz. Even though Vin Diesel just needed to record him saying "I am Groot" for Guardians of the Galaxy, he recorded it in 7 different languages. When they first started filming the show Game of Thrones, they had 3 rules. No flashbacks, no dreams, and no prophecies. But by the end of Season 5, all 3 of those rules were broken. I thought this was kind of interesting. Princess Peach and Toad are voiced by the same person. And finally, in this scene in Avengers, originally Tony was not supposed to be eating blueberries. Robert Downey Jr. just hid so much food around the set, eventually people just stopped caring. Weird Nerd Facts Part 12. If you get this joke, there's some extra credit for you. A witch and a boomer from Left 4 Dead can be seen in the movie Cabin in the Woods. Due to Stephen King's alcohol problem, he does not remember writing Cujo. Aang from Last Airbender was almost voiced by this guy. The 36th fastest computer in the world is made out of various computer parts that you can get at the store, including nearly 2,000 PlayStation 3s. There was one comic in which all the Avengers were discussing what actor they would want to play them in a movie, and Nick Fury actually said that he'd want to be played by Samuel L. Jackson. The Queen's favorite incarnation of the Doctor is Christopher Eccleston. Assassin's Creed was originally supposed to be based off of Prince of Persia. Even though it's not a real religion, based off of the amount of people that put it on their country's census, Jedi is the 4th biggest religion in England and the 2nd biggest in New Zealand. And finally, Spider-Man had more lines in Captain America Civil War than Superman did in Batman vs. Superman. Weird Nerd Facts, Part 13. It would cost $852 quadrillion to build the Death Star. When making the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, Scott Cawthon often had nightmares about his own creations. Deadpool once killed a guy just because he said the Star Wars prequels were better than the original trilogy. After the movie Rocky IV came out, there were jokes about him fighting an alien in the next movie, but a couple of screenwriters didn't take it as a joke and actually wrote a script for it, and that script would later become Predator. Okay, so this was told to me and my friend by Peter Capaldi himself at a Comic-Con, so I'm going to accept it as canon. The 12th Doctor's favorite food is lasagna. I shit you not, there's a DC villain whose body is made entirely out of marijuana. The book that would later become Terminator is based off of a nightmare that the author had. And finally, there was an alternate reality in which Peter Parker gets bitten by a radioactive sheep, turning him into a hero known as Sheep Boy. If you see anyone cosplaying as this, please let me know. Henry Cavill almost missed the phone call saying he got the role of Superman because he was busy playing World of Warcraft. Deadpool is known to frequently donate his organs and just regrow them. The sound a ghast makes in Minecraft is a slowed down audio of Notch's cat. Chris Evans originally turned down the role to be Captain America. Twice. The writer of the movie The Fifth Element wrote the original screenplay when he was still in high school. If there are any Doctor Who fans out there that don't know this already, you really need to. After the episode The Doctor's Daughter, David Tennant started dating and eventually married the actress that played his daughter. Already weird, but to make it even weirder, her father was Peter Davison, who played the Fifth Doctor, making the Doctor his own son-in-law in real life. In the scene in Indiana Jones, when Indiana shoots the swordsman, he was originally supposed to pull the gun out of his holster, then shoot, but Harrison Ford didn't because he was getting tired of how many takes they did of that scene. And finally, almost the entire cast of Rise of Skywalker think Poe and Finn are a better couple than Rey and Kylo. Guess who's back, nerds? Sorry I was gone for a while. I had to get my wisdom teeth removed, so talking was a bit of a struggle for a couple of days, but I'm back with some more nerdness to teach. So grab your comic books, turn on your game consoles, and let's get into it. The famous line, "Why is Gamora?" in Avengers Infinity War was improvised. The reason Crowley walks weird in the show Good Omens is because David Tennant's pants were too tight. The Green Arrow can fire 29 arrows a minute. The longest game of Dungeons & Dragons has been going on for 38 years. Roll for dedication. In 1982, Tron was denied a nomination for an Oscar for Best Special Effects because back then, using CGI was considered cheating. Deadpool is the only superhero that Taskmaster cannot copy because his fighting style is so sporadic and unpredictable that Taskmaster just can't keep up. And also, he once confused him by dancing the Macarena while he fought him. And finally, Peter Jackson once asked Stephen Moffat if he could direct a Doctor Who episode, asking that he only be paid in a golden Dalek-like prop. Weird Nerd Facts, Spider-Man edition. I found a lot of Spidey facts, so I thought I'd get them all out of the way now. Spider-Man was the first ever teenage superhero that wasn't a sidekick to anybody else. Even though his webs deteriorate in a couple of hours, they're strong enough to hold back the Hulk, and are so fast that he was once able to web a gun after the trigger was pulled. One of Spidey's weaknesses is the pesticide ethyl chloride. Spidey has been a member of the Avengers, the Defenders, and the Fantastic Four. Also, if you're new around here, fucking Sheep Boy. Spidey once easily defeated all of the X-Men, making them, as Wolverine said, look like fools. There is a sensor that's built into his suit that's there specifically just for him to get good photos of himself for the Daily Bugle. Spider-Man and Deadpool once fought each other for so long that they both passed out and fell asleep together. And Deadpool frequently stops by Peter's apartment, and if he's not there, Deadpool breaks in, does one of Peter's chores, and then leaves. And finally, Stan Lee once said that one of the reasons Peter wears a mask is so that his enemies can't tell when he's afraid. Weird Nerd Facts, Harry Potter edition. A Malfoy almost married Queen Elizabeth I. Why does no one wear the hood up? But anyway, the Dementors are based off of J.K. Rowling's depression. During the kissing scene in the Deathly Hallows, The guy that played Ron was asked to leave set due to him laughing hysterically. J.K. Rowling first thought up all the names of the characters on an airplane and wrote all of them on an airport barf bag. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, in the collection of great wizards in Dumbledore's quarters, if you look really close, you can see a picture of Gandalf. Hermione's Patronus is an otter, and Ron's is a Jack Russell Terrier, which are creatures that are known to chase each other, and that is adorable. Throughout his entire career as Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe went through 160 different pairs of glasses and had the lightning bolt drawn on his forehead over 2,000 times. And finally, the cat that Professor McGonagall turns into, in real life, is named Mrs. P. Head. And yes, I am a Gryffindor, and this is Professor Lupin's wand because I like this style the most. Weird Nerd Facts, Star Wars Edition. Throughout all the Star Wars movies, no one ever says the word Ewok. And the Ewok language is a combination of Tibetan and Nepalese. Darth Vader, for some reason, hates dual-wielding lightsabers. It has been shown that Palpatine used the Force to create Anakin, technically making him his father. Which means these two are related, they did it to us again! The band NSYNC almost had a cameo in Attack of the Clones due to the request of George Lucas's daughter, but it got cut from the final movie. Chewbacca's voice is a combination of bears, walruses, lions, badgers, and then the website that I found this on just said etc. Yoda was almost played by a monkey. Jabba the Hutt was originally supposed to have fur. You can see E.T. in The Phantom Menace. The sound of a TIE Fighter engine is actually the sound of an elephant. And the sound of a lightsaber is the sound of an old TV turning on. And finally, Qui-Gon Jinn's communicator was actually a Gillette razor.
Weird Nerd Facts?
Deadpool edition.
Loki, the god of mischief, once cursed Deadpool to look like Tom Cruise.
Thanos once killed Deadpool by completely obliterating him, causing him to regrow into 4 different versions of himself. A wisecracking dumbass, a selfless hero, a murderous psychopath, and an amoeba that only said the word pickles.
Because both Deadpool and Captain America see themselves as failed experiment, Cap is actually one of the few superheroes that respects Deadpool.
Deadpool once beat Galactus just by talking an endless stream of nonsense.
Deadpool once made an entire deck of cards for every villain in the Marvel Universe. Then he proceeded to make another deck for all their favorite modes of transportation, and that totals up to a bunch of thousands of cards.
And finally, there's one comic where all past presidents come back to life as zombies, and Deadpool defeats them with the help of Doctor Strange and Benjamin Franklin's ghost. Weird Nerd Facts Deadpool Edition Part 2, because I got more. Deadpool had a sidekick named Hydra Bob, who joined Hydra just for the dental insurance and has no combat skills whatsoever. And the only reason Deadpool keeps him around is for his own entertainment. Deadpool is Canadian. Like Ryan Reynolds. Are we absolutely positive that they're not just the same person? The Deadpool movie was shot in only 48 days. Deadpool can speak 5 different languages, but can say the word chimichanga in 7. Also, strangely enough, Deadpool doesn't like chimichangas, he just likes the word. Deadpool once married Dracula's fiancée. Deadpool can't be possessed or mind-controlled in any way whatsoever. And finally, the cover of Deadpool Volume 3, number 27, holds a Guinness World Record for most characters appearing on the cover at the same time, at 232 characters, and before that, the world record was 224. Weird Nerd Facts, World of Warcraft Edition. Because I can't stop playing. Humans are the most played race in the entire game. Which is so boring, at least make a Worgen so they can turn into humans. There's an item called the Ever-Burning Lamp that is on an island off the south coast of Talador, that if you go up to and interact with it, a genie will appear that is a tribute to Robin Williams. In 2005, there was a glitch that took over the entire game that would later be called the Corrupted Blood, that basically behaved like a real-life plague, and actually later led to the development of simulations used to study how diseases spread. There's an NPC in Lunarfall that is named Mina Kunis, that is based off of Mila Kunis, who was such a big fan of the game that she actually had to quit because it developed into an unhealthy addiction. World of Warcraft is played across 244 different countries and territories, including Antarctica. And finally, the Swift Spectral Tiger is the rarest and most expensive mount in the entire game, costing 750,000 gold or 300 real-life dollars. Weird Nerd Facts, Lord of the Rings / Hobbit Edition. Since he lives in a mountain full of gold, Smaug is the richest fictional character of all time. And while creating Smaug's lair, the crew used up all of the gold paint in all of New Zealand. Jake Gyllenhaal auditioned to play Frodo. This is such a weirdly specific one that I had to put it in a video. The Desolation of Smaug is the only movie in the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings series in which Legolas blinks on screen without being injured. Due to his hatred of helicopters, Sean Bean hiked up the mountains that they were going to film on in his full costume and armor. The elk that Thranduil rides is played by a horse named Moose. And finally, the 5 wizards are not human. They are part of a race called, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, the Maiar, that are shapeshifters. Weird Nerd Facts, Assassin's Creed Edition. According to the lead writer of Assassin's Creed, there will never be any part of the franchise that takes place during World War II. Ezio's entire story was about 23 to 30 years of his life. About 80% of the characters that have appeared in all of the games are actual people found in history. Even though the franchise is still going, the ending of it was written years ago. Ubisoft wasn't a big fan of the idea of the Animus, which is why it doesn't appear often in later games. In case you didn't know this one, Aiden Pierce from Watch Dogs was confirmed to be an assassin. The first game was based off of a book written by a man named Vladimir Bartol that was about an order called the Order of the Hashashin. And finally, Altair's name being Altair ibn La'ahad is actually very symbolic because it means the bird and son of none. And birds are very symbolic throughout the entire franchise, and son of none is very important because he was an orphan. Weird Nerd Facts, Doctor Who Edition. The 6th Doctor originally wanted his outfit to be very dark and boring colors, and if you don't know what the costume they went with for him looks like, look it up. It's so much funnier knowing this. The day Matt Smith's first episode, The 11th Hour, first premiered is known as Fish Fingers and Custard Day. It is April 3rd. Mark your calendars and celebrate every year by marathoning Season 5. Peter Capaldi is a lifelong fan of the show ever since it first premiered back in 1963, to the point where when he was a teenager he created tons of Doctor Who fan art and kept calling the BBC asking for him to be named the president of the show's fan club. The 50th anniversary special was not the first or the biggest crossover between Doctors, because there was one for the 20th anniversary special called The 5 Doctors, where Doctors 1 through 5 met. And finally, it took 6 years to trademark the word TARDIS, and they desperately needed to because they kept getting in trouble with police for selling merchandise based around a police box. I like having things to point with. Weird Nerd Facts, Portal Edition. It's not in either of the games, but there is a core in Aperture Science that sounds like Morgan Freeman. Portal 2 was originally supposed to be a prequel, and the enemy in it was going to be Cave Johnson. Aperture Science is confirmed to be in Michigan. GLaDOS was put into a potato in Portal 2, specifically because the developers wanted to find it literally the most embarrassing thing that could possibly happen to her. The part where Wheatley takes over the facility and says something in Spanish, in case you guys never got around to translating it like me, it means, "You are using this translator software incorrectly, please consult the manual." One of the central components for a portal gun is a miniaturized black hole. Wheatley was originally supposed to die the second GLaDOS woke up. Weird Nerd Facts. Last Airbender Edition. The main enemy throughout the entire series was going to be the Fire Lord, but they realized they couldn't do that much with him also running the Fire Nation, so they introduced Zuko as a character. Toph was originally supposed to be a male character, and they paid tribute to that in the play episode. Lake Laogai is based off of a real Chinese labor camp that was used in the 50s and 60s, where hundreds of political prisoners were actually sent to be brainwashed, just like in Lake Laogai. The Air Nomads are the only nation made entirely of benders. There are only 4 last names mentioned throughout the entire show, and that's including Pippin Paddleopsicopolis. When Sokka gives Toph the piece of asteroid, one of the first shapes she makes is the Nickelodeon logo. Every Agni Kai in the entire series was against Zuko. And finally, the original concept for the show was going to be a sci-fi that took place thousands of years in the future. And in this, Momo was going to be a cyborg with one eye. Weird Nerd Facts Last Airbender / Legend of Korra Edition. The actor that plays Zuko in the Ember Island Players is voiced by Zuko's voice actor's older brother. During a flashback in Legend of Korra, there's a mishap in animation where Toph has 6 fingers. Iroh says the phrase, "a man needs his rest," at both the beginning and the end of Book 1. In Legend of Korra, most of the main characters' birthdays took place in the 6 months between the end of Book 1 and the beginning of Book 2. Iroh naming his tea shop in Ba Sing Se the Jasmine Dragon. Jasmine is not his favorite tea, it's Zuko's. Katara was in every season finale of Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. For an airbender to get their tattoos, they need to master 36 different levels of airbending or invent their own. Aang mastered 35, then invented the air scooter, and he was the youngest to get his tattoos until his granddaughter. Korra pouts over 200 times. And finally, the day after the scene Sokka's in the tent calling for Suki, he's seen wearing a flower necklace, being a pun meaning he got laid.